The massive space station hung in the void like a crystal flower. Its name was Concordia, and it served as the neutral meeting place for the galaxy's most important discussions. Today, it hosted what many believed would be the final conversation between humanity and the rest of the galaxy. This wasn't just another diplomatic spat. This was the precipice, the last gasp of diplomacy before the inevitable plunge into total, unbridled warfare. The air around Concordia, usually humming with trade and interspecies chatter, was thick with an unspoken tension, a foreboding quiet that settled deep in the bones of even the most hardened diplomats. Every species present knew the stakes, knew the history of humanity's meteoric and frankly baffling rise. They knew the Concordance had, 22 minutes ago, issued an ultimatum, and now they waited for the human response. Admiral Sarah Chun walked through the station's gleaming corridors. Each step echoed a quiet resolve, a stark contrast to the swirling anxieties she could almost taste in the recycled air. She was acutely aware of the eyes on her, the silent scrutiny from every alien delegate and staff member she passed. Her simple black uniform looked plain next to the elaborate robes and armor worn by the alien delegates she passed. Some had scales that shifted color with their emotions, a living mood ring of iridescent fear and apprehension. Others floated in mechanical suits filled with exotic gases, their true forms hidden, perhaps mercifully. A few looked almost human, except for their silver eyes or too many fingers, an unnerving, uncanny valley effect that always set her teeth on edge. They all stared at her as she passed. She could feel their thoughts, a cacophony of judgment and barely veiled contempt. Here was the representative of the species that had somehow managed to fight the entire galaxy to a standstill. That thought, a recurring theme in the alien consciousness, was usually accompanied by a mixture of grudging respect and utter bewilderment. How had these upstarts, these deathworlders, as some called them, managed it? Their technology was supposed to be centuries behind, their numbers laughably small. Yet here she was. Here was the human who might decide whether this war would continue or end. The weight of that decision, the fate of 8 billion souls, pressed down on her. A familiar burden she had long since learned to carry with an almost unnerving calm. Chun reached the main conference hall. The room was enormous, built to accommodate beings of many different sizes and environmental needs. The sheer scale of it was meant to intimidate, to highlight humanity's relative insignificance in the grand galactic tapestry. At the center sat a circular table made from a single piece of crystallized starlight, shimmering with captured cosmic dust. 12 chairs surrounded it, 11 occupied by the most powerful beings in known space. Each seat was a throne, really designed for comfort and, more importantly, to amplify the perceived authority of its occupant. There was Ambassador Zethkar of the Vortak, his crystalline body catching and refracting the room's soft light, a beacon of ancient, unyielding power. Beside him, the coiled form of Ambassador Vexhai of the Mordanian Empire, her serpentine grace betraying a sharp, calculating mind. And further down, the hulking, rocky mass of Krelthok of the asteroid miners, a creature whose very presence spoke of raw, untamed strength. Even the enigmatic General Cox Moon of the Hive Collective, her insect-like form a study in alien efficiency, occupied her place, her multifaceted eyes fixed on the entrance. Ambassador Zethkar of the Vortak rose as Chun entered. His body, a living sculpture of crystal, pulsed with a faint, internal light, each facet catching and reflecting the room's soft illumination. When he spoke, his voice rang like wind chimes in a gentle breeze, a sound almost incongruous with the gravity of the moment. "Admiral Chun," he said, his tone carefully neutral, "thank you for coming. Please take your seat." Chun nodded, a small, almost imperceptible dip of her head, and made her way to the single empty chair. It had been made specifically for human anatomy, a concession that was both a courtesy and a subtle reminder of humanity's otherness, their recent arrival on the galactic stage. One of the few concessions the aliens had made, indeed. She pulled out a small notebook and a pen from her jacket pocket, a simple, analog gesture in a room bristling with holographic interfaces and neural implants. Several delegates made sounds that might have been laughter, a low, rumbling chorus of amusement and disdain. "Still using primitive tools, I see," commented Ambassador Vexhai of the Mordanian Empire, her snake-like body coiled in her specialized chair, 6 arms gesturing dismissively. Her voice, a sibilant whisper, carried clearly across the vast chamber. How charmingly backward. It was a barb, meant to highlight humanity's perceived technological inferiority. They're clinging to archaic methods in a galaxy that had long since moved on. Chun simply opened her notebook and waited, her gaze unwavering. She had learned long ago that patience was often humanity's greatest weapon, a quiet resilience that often unnerved those accustomed to bluster and immediate reaction. Zethkar, ignoring Vexhai's jab, activated a holographic display above the table. Star charts appeared, a swirling tapestry of celestial bodies, showing the current state of the war. Red zones marked areas of human control. They had grown significantly in the past 3 years, a cancerous spread on the galactic map from the aliens' perspective. "Let us begin with facts," Zethkar said, his musical voice now laced with a hint of steel. 3 years ago, humanity emerged from what we believed was primitive isolation. You had barely achieved faster-than-light travel. Your technology was centuries behind ours. Your population numbered only 8 billion across a handful of worlds. He gestured, and the display zoomed in on various battle sites, each a testament to alien defeat. Yet somehow you have managed to destroy our outer colonies. You have captured our supply lines. You have made our people afraid to sleep at night. How do you explain this? The question hung in the air, weighted with genuine confusion and a deep-seated frustration. The Galactic Concordance, with its millennia of accumulated knowledge and vast military might, simply could not fathom how this nascent species had turned the tide so effectively. Their strategic models, based on predictable technological progression and conventional warfare, had utterly failed against humanity's unorthodox tactics and sheer, unyielding will. Chun made a note in her book, the scratching of her pen a surprisingly loud sound in the hushed room. "We are resourceful," she said simply, her voice clear and calm, devoid of any defensiveness. This time, the alien laughter was more obvious, a louder, more derisive sound that filled the chamber. Ambassador Krelthok of the asteroid miners slammed one of his 4 fists on the table, the impact rattling the crystallized starlight. His rocky hide grated against itself as he moved, a sound like grinding tectonic plates. "Resourceful?" he roared, his voice a gravelly rumble that shook the very foundations of the room. "You are pests, clever pests, yes, but still pests. You bite and run and hide like cowards. You have no honor in battle." Krelthok's species valued direct confrontation, brute force, and a rigid code of martial conduct. Humanity's asymmetrical warfare, their willingness to exploit every weakness, every unconventional avenue, was anathema to him. "Honor is a luxury," Chun replied, still writing, her gaze momentarily flicking up to meet Krelthok's multifaceted eyes before returning to her notebook. "We prefer to win." It was a statement that encapsulated humanity's core philosophy, a pragmatism born of a violent, challenging history. General Cox Moon of the Hive Collective leaned forward, her insect-like features impossible for humans to read, but her tone carried clear irritation, a buzzing frequency that resonated with barely contained anger. "Your winning streak ends today, human. We offer you terms. Accept them and your species continues to exist. Refuse, and we will crush every human world into dust." The threat was delivered with cold, clinical certainty, backed by the collective might of countless worlds. Chun looked up from her notebook, finally closing it. Her eyes, dark and steady, swept across the faces of the delegates. "I'm listening," she said, her voice betraying nothing of the immense pressure she was under. Zethkar activated another display. This one showed the Sol system, Earth highlighted in a stark, vulnerable blue. "These are our requirements," he began, his voice taking on a formal, almost ritualistic cadence. "First, immediate cessation of all human military activities. Your ships will power down their weapons and return to human space. Second, complete withdrawal of all human forces to the Sol system. You will not leave your home system without permission. Third, acceptance of hegemony oversight. Our governors will manage human affairs to ensure compliance. The display changed to show population numbers. Trillions of aliens across thousands of worlds. 8 billion humans on a dozen planets. The stark contrast was meant to be crushing, to illustrate the overwhelming odds humanity faced. Fourth, war reparations. You will provide resources and labor to repair the damage you have caused. This wasn't just about rebuilding, it was about subjugation, about turning humanity into a galactic indentured servant. Fifth, surrender of all human military leaders for trial and punishment. A clear demand for scapegoats, a public humiliation for the species that dared defy them. Sixth, dismantling of your weapons manufacturing capability. This last term was the true death knell, ensuring humanity would never again pose a threat, leaving them utterly defenseless. Chun continued taking notes, her pen scratching methodically across the paper. The sound was the only one in the vast chamber, a defiant whisper against the galactic roar. It was a subtle act of resistance, a refusal to be overwhelmed by the sheer arrogance of the demands. The aliens, for all their advanced technology, still couldn't grasp the human capacity for quiet defiance. Still using primitive tools, I see, commented Ambassador Vexai again, her snake-like body coiled in her specialized chair, 6 arms gesturing dismissively. It was a repetition of her earlier insult, a deliberate attempt to needle, to break Chen's composure. But Chun simply opened her notebook and waited, her expression unreadable. She understood that their insults, their condescension, were born of a fear they refused to acknowledge. A fear of the unpredictable, the tenacious, the utterly human. These terms are generous, considering your crimes, Zethkar said, the musicality returning to his voice, a chilling sweetness. We could simply exterminate your species. Our combined fleets outnumber yours by more than 10,000 to 1. Our technology makes your weapons look like sharp sticks. Your total population could fit into one of our smaller cities. Admiral Chen. He paused, letting the crushing weight of those statistics settle, allowing the full scope of humanity's precarious position to sink in. He expected capitulation, a breaking of spirit. He expected fear. But Sarah Chen felt something else entirely. A shiver went through her, not of fear, but of a cold, calculated certainty. She looked at the faces around the table, the smug superiority, the barely hidden disdain, the profound misunderstanding. They saw a cornered animal. They had no idea they were looking at a deathworlder, a species forged in endless struggle, a creature that thrives when pushed to its limits. Their arrogance was a shield, protecting them from the terrifying truth. They had gravely miscalculated. They believed they held all the cards, that their numbers and technology guaranteed victory. But humanity had always been the exception, the anomaly. They didn't fight for glory or conquest, not primarily. They fought to survive, with an ingenuity and a ferocity that defied conventional logic. The man was right. Even she couldn't stop them, not in the way they expected. Not by diplomacy, not by negotiation. But maybe she didn't have to. The galaxy had just delivered its ultimatum, a death sentence cloaked in generous terms. Now it was humanity's turn to reply. And that reply, she knew, would be unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. It would be a response born of desperation, yes, but also of a hidden strength, a capacity for innovation and ruthlessness that would shock them to their core. Harrison and his people had been working on this for years. While the galaxy had scoffed at humanity's primitive tools and dismissed their resilience as mere stubbornness, humanity had been busy. They had been adapting, evolving, preparing for precisely this moment when diplomacy failed and survival was on the line. The research context whispered of advanced weaponry, AI-driven systems, and experimental technologies that other species would find incomprehensible or brutal. It hinted at humanity's unpredictable and relentless nature, a fight to the last mentality. This was the foundation of Harrison's work. She closed her eyes for a brief moment, picturing the vastness of human ingenuity, the countless minds tirelessly working in the shadows, fueled by a collective defiance. The galaxy had poked the bear, and now the bear was about to roar. She opened her eyes, her gaze sweeping over the alien delegates one last time, a silent promise in their depths. Thank you. She didn't say it to Zethkar. She said it to the collective, to the universe itself. A thank you for showing humanity their hand, for underestimating them, for giving them the perfect stage. Then, a thought, a silent vow, echoed in her mind, directed to the man who would orchestrate the storm. I will have our answer for you, Moro Harrison. And that answer, when it came, would terrify the galaxy.